That was weird. Do you know what's also weird, however? Astral Chain on the Nintendo Switch, which is developed by Platinum Games. Which is why it's weird, because Platinum Games create weird games. They're weird. But this special brand of weirdness often ends up producing weird but wonderfully brilliant games. Like Astral Chain, which is a game about anime police officers fighting intergalactic invading aliens. Yes! To make things weirder, they use the Legion, who are subjugated versions of these aliens, the Chimeras, to help fight crime. It's weird to think that that's how we're all born. But there's little time for introduction, literally. The game has immediately thrown you into a high-octane motorbike segment, and goodness does the game make you feel incredible.
En route to Grand Avenue.
Ow.
Watch out for abandoned vehicles on the highway.
Everything is going wrong. People are being tainted and turning into monsters. Everything is on fire. Thankfully, there's an outstandingly over-the-top anime-style song, which is a telltale sign of quality. I am being 100% serious, by the way. The only way this could get more dire is if, I don't know, you somehow face like a near-death experience and have to get saved by like a newfound power that allows you to face this new and confusing enemy. So, you're part of the anime space police now, fighting space demons and trying to stop the world from crumbling into nothingness. However, it's not all just fighting space aliens in incredible combat. That's right, in Astral Chain you'll have to hit the streets to solve crimes and investigations and hunt around to do just normal police work, and this is honestly such a great strength of the game. You'll be presented with a crime scene and then you get to look around and try and discern clues and keywords and phrases, or even just going around an area sorting out odd jobs with the general populace for tidbits of information that may turn out to be useful to the case. But then, not all information is actually created equally. Towards the end of each investigation, the game will present you with basically a quiz, as it gives you a bunch of questions that you have to try and solve using specific keywords, and only some of the keywords are required, and some of them aren't, and you have to try and solve this thing, and it feels like detective work. I assume. I'm not a detective myself. Do you really think they'd let me on the force after everything I've done? The game is full of side quests and side endeavours, and all sorts of tiny bits and pieces to get lost down when you're on patrol with your intergalactic alien thrall. Best not think about that bit. From the dangers of chasing down street thugs, hunting down vandals and gangs, to the slightly more peculiar tasks, such as delivering a wobbly ice cream to a crying child, or finding public toilets to use so you can retrieve toilet paper for a ghost that lives in the police precinct's loos. I love it. And you can even just run around collecting litter, throwing them in the bin. They never train you for this. These moments of like pure copying are just so deliciously brilliant. Because sure, they're weird and wacky and wonderful, but they also work so well as you're trying to just piece together these tiny bits of information, and the game doesn't necessarily hold your hand that tightly, so for the most part, it actually feels like you yourself are working things out. You're putting the clues together, you're working out what went wrong, and whether it be for like the main mission about saving the world from intergalactic space aliens, or a little side mission that, you know, you've picked up a very useful clue just for that one thing, and then you can put it all together. It's wonderful. It's got such a nice exploration loop that you genuinely want to actively explore every nook and cranny of each map to try and find every single clue and to solve each case. Which is good, because the game is quite honestly just cracking to look at. You immediately know how well this Neo City looks from just the opening bike sequence, but the game continues to launch you into busy shopping districts and large neon plazas that all look so incredible. And well realize that this world seems bustling and huge and dabbles in just enough colours at the right moments to keep things impactful, especially during combat and the various colourful monsters you'll be facing. I think it's about time that we peel back the layers of this platinum sandwich. If a dazzling aesthetic and striking visuals at the top slice of bread, and then you've got an innate weirdness and just quirkiness being the bottom slice of bread, then the intense and energetic combat is the meaty filling. And do you know what that all combines into? Lunch. Also the combat, because as the anime special police, your main role is to deal with any chimera outbreak that occurs, and this mainly manifests as either like normal civilians distorting into hellish nightmare creatures, or the aliens, the chimeras, actively just breaking through dimensional barriers to straight up ruin your day. You'll be using your full police arsenal to deal with these problems, while pulling off as many flips and spins as you can. You've got your police baton for fast swipes, your police gun for a more ranged approach, and then your police broadsword? What? Which deals heavier but slower damage. Alongside your own weapons, you've got the Legion, your subservient alien, who freely attacks enemies, and you can command them directly to pull off a number of combos. At first, the whole system can seem somewhat confusing given how many different moves you can pull off. And the different number of blocks and dodges and counters and evasive moves all probably leave you getting your face smashed in, while you yourself are smashing the face buttons of the controller, because you suck. But eventually things begin to make sense. You begin to work out when to press the button to send your Legion out to attack and when to pull them back to help defend. You begin to wrap your head around the ability to move you and your Legion at the same time to try and bind or trip up enemies with your connecting chain. The combat is incredibly fast-paced and filled with enough variety in enemies that you're normally using your full kit to deal with them. And it feels kind of great, especially once you eventually get to grips with everything or teach your Legion some new skills or abilities. Not to mention that the intensity and scale of fights ends up being incredibly different depending on whether or not you're fighting a rogue demon wandering the streets or a horde of monsters in the weird alien dimension. Did I not introduce you to the alternate alien dimension? Well, get used to it, because you'll be spending large quantities of time in this weird non-Euclidean crystal landscape, as for the most part they act as basically the game's major dungeons. These hellish landscapes will often see you pushing through a variety of platforming segments or bizarre puzzles in order to try and rescue a civilian or get to a greater threat that you need to eventually vanquish. Stop! Video game police! Hi there! I'm Detective Jimothy Video Games, and I'm here to hold Astral Chain accountable for some of its crimes. You see, the alternate dimension zone segments are actually some of really interesting and unique and fun, but at the same time, they'll rapidly become some of the most annoying encounters you come across in the game due to the ever so slightly awkward way you get around them. You send your legion out to where you want to vaguely be, then have it pull you to it. However, a lot of the time you'll find yourself landing on the precarious edge and then immediately fall down and have to do it all over again, which is honestly fine once or twice, but it will happen so frequently that you begin to gnaw into your controller as unit collision keeps colliding you into the abyss. Also, combat can seem a little messy at times. I spoke about how you can eventually begin to feel like you're mastering the game and becoming great. But at the same time, there will still be moments where you're basically just mashing the buttons and each fight is ranked and oh my god, how do I actually please you? It's like trying to impress your dad when your older brother is just infinitely more impressive than you are. You'll go through battle pulling off as many combos and spins as you can possibly think of, and the game will turn and say, yeah, it's alright. Other times you'll just be hitting the dodge buttons so much that it all just feels a little clumsy and there's no way it can ever actually achieve or impress anything. And then, what, an S+? Why can't you just be proud of my own achievements for who I am? Also, without actually spoiling the final encounter, which I won't do, it does fall into this bizarre trap that so many JRPGs fall into recently, where there's like a consistent difficulty curve throughout the entire game. It all seems really manageable until the final boss, which is for whatever reason like 8 hours, and it has 500 different forms, and every single move it performs will one-hit KO you immediately. It's dumb, it's stupid, it kind of almost ruins the entire game experience because everything's wonderful until you get to this final encounter where you're just like, what do I do? Why are so many of its moves undodgeable? Why is it always so firmly engaged in trying to murder me that I can't actually get an attack in? Finally, those moments of investigation I talked about, they're great, wonderful even, truly outstanding. They're also not actually that frequent. They kind of drop off after a certain point in the game and they're incredibly missed. You still have this incredible pacing of a quieter time to do some side quests and exploration, shortly followed by an action-intense saving the world mission. But the nature of the game begins to change just a little bit towards the end, in which you're no longer necessarily investigating, or at least being quizzed upon it. You're never being like asked what you've learned and putting your clues to the test. You just kind of do stuff. That wonderful rhythm and pacing of the loop of like slowly investigating and having these open explore moments and then doing a big action sequence is still there, it's still wonderful. But towards the end of the game, that theme of like police cops begins to fade away a little bit because as you no longer actually do any police cop work, it becomes more of like an anime JRPG game where you just happen to be wearing a police uniform towards the end. Oh, that said though, Astral Chain is such a wonderful experience and an incredible game that has like such an incredibly engaging and dark story with enough twists and turns involved that it will keep you firmly planted in the police drama that takes place. The combat is incredible and enjoyable, and you unlock so many abilities and other bits and pieces and different tricks that you'll end up exploring every corner of this beautiful world to try and find every missing kitten and public toilet. Also, it's just inherently weird and wacky, and that's just so much fun.
This is the restroom!
If you're a big fan of JRPGs, then this should obviously be on your list. No questions asked. Why have you not played this if you've not already played it? If you're just a big fan of action games, then maybe this should also be a game you should be playing, because it's just good. It's really good, and it's not even bogged down in too much like anime weirdness. It is just a tight, wonderful action adventure experience. Mwah, it's brilliant. Hi there, I'm Detective Jimothy Video Games. Did you enjoy this video? If you did, make sure to leave a like or a comment or your own possible thoughts about the game Astral Chain before it's taken to court. Anyway, if you want, why don't you check out some of the other videos that not me, Jimothy Video Games have created, but someone else who's probably quite cool. You've got over here a video about Wilmot's Warehouse. It's a little indie game. It's also on the Nintendo Switch if you're interested. Or down here, we've got a fun little video about Pokemon, specifically which ghost Pokemon you'll become when you eventually, inevitably die and leave everyone miserable and alone. Also, you can click on my face orb to subscribe, which is a thing people do. Anyway, thank you and goodbye. I winked, you can see.